involved. And I'm going to outline in very short remarks, I'm going to outline 4 points from our side about why this element of student leadership and advocacy and involvement is so important, not only to 15 by 30 and refugee higher education, but especially to expanding access to higher education. So my first point is about amplifying youth voices and just stating the fact that achieving 15 by 30 for refugee higher education is not just about reaching a great number of people enrolled in higher education, but in transforming systems over time, right? In seeing this groundswell of young people moving through education, developing skills, having experience in leadership positions, and getting that history and that foundation built to actually change policy and practice over time, right? It's not something that we do like that. It requires investing in skills, investing in education and experiences, and talking with each other and building networks. So that's point one. Point two is about the value of lived experience and lived, insight from people with lived experience, and noting that we can't, whether it's UNHCR or NGOs or governments or what have you, can't build systems for greater accessibility that don't take into account the perspectives of the people who are going to be in higher education and who are going to be using those skills in there to build their own futures, et cetera. So bringing student leaders in firsthand is essential to making sure that we've got effective, locally grounded solutions. And that's what we're here to do today. So I want to thank all the organizers from TRSN for doing this and driving this forward. Point number 3 is about accountability. And noting that since TRSN formed in 2019, it has created this real vibrant two-way communication channel that we have to be able to say, okay, who's got an idea about how we can tackle this challenge? Who can jump in and support on working on this initiative? And it keeps everyone accountable and engaged and really having to bring your whole self and show up, whether it's as an individual or as part of an institution or an organization, and saying, these are real students, real people who are involved and committed, and we need to come equally to the table with that. So there's point 3 on accountability. And point 4 is on an overarching commitment and recognition that students are and should be change makers. And I think, I've heard Monica speak to this. I've heard Asya speak to this. I've heard so many of you speak to this, that higher education and access to skills and opportunities to not only to work together, but also to speak on a global stage or a local stage or a national or regional stage, it helps to foster this sort of spirit of leadership, to say, if we don't stand up, who will? And so let us all continue to come together and sort of force this agenda about students as change makers. And so extending that to 15 by 30 is really relying on students and connections between students and the initiatives of student leaders to push forward messages, to demand greater accountability, to ensure that we stay on track and bring more members into this community on higher education so that we can achieve our goal. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you again, so many of you, for joining. And we are here to answer questions and discuss and engage on anything that you wish going forward. So thanks again. And Asya, I'll pass back to you.
Thank you so much, Manal, for not only supporting this event, but for being a part of this bigger vision to include refugee voices in everything we do. Let's now take a closer look to an initiative that's simple, powerful, and full of potential. It's called Each One Take One. This is idea: if every university took just one refugee student, the system would start to change. It's about shared responsibility and real access. We will now hear more about this from Frankie, who is joining us from UNHCR side.
Great. Thank you so much, Asya. Thanks, everyone. Fantastic to be on the call with you. I won't take too much time, but I do think it's important to just introduce many of you, I'm sure, for the first time. Some of you, I hope, you will have already been familiar with what we're trying to do in Each One Take One. But to introduce you to it and to try to explain why it is a critical way of moving forward with 15 by 30, but also why there's such a crucial role within it for students. So what is Each One Take One? The way we refer to it as UNHCR is as a global solidarity movement. And the reason we've referred to it as a movement is because we feel that we know that movements can scale. So we do have this very ambitious target of getting 15% of refugees into higher education by 2030. And in order to reach that goal, we need to get a lot more universities involved. And so building a movement that can scale is the way that we envisage that happening. But also it's an acknowledgement that we have with the likes of TRSN, but also with our many groups of universities that UNHCR is a part of or coordinates, we have a very powerful community of students, academics, leaders, philanthropists who are all eager to push forward this agenda of getting refugees into higher education. And so we want to find entry points to get that community more involved in this work. And that's what the essence of Each One Take One is. It's a solidarity movement, and it's a movement that enables the many actors we work with to really get involved and push forward refugee higher education. It's based on the assumption that in order to do this, we need to work with both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. Something we hear often from universities is that they would love to have more refugee scholarships, but they don't have the funding, or there's a resistance from the vice chancellor or whatever it may be. And so part of this movement is to engage with university leadership through global forums, through rankings, through roundtables, to really push refugee higher education up the strategic agenda of universities, and to make it a reflex reaction for universities to really take refugee higher education seriously. And the bottom-up approach is where the students come in, and perhaps even the faculty and the communities. We know that students, faculty and communities are able to put huge pressure on universities to take decisions. And we've seen some really successful examples of this over the years, but I think especially over the past 2 years. But what we want to do is to build this bottom-up campaign alongside the top-down advocacy to really push home the message of refugee higher education. In terms of the how, what we can offer as UNHCR, I said, we have this very powerful network, but we also have a range of tools which we're building and which we already possess. We have a lot of guidance. We have expertise, various other things. We also have networks that we sit on top of. And we also have ways of supporting and building partnerships, such as through investments in connectivity, which allows higher education to take place in refugee hosting communities. I'll finish by saying one thing. I think the whole emphasis of Each One Take One is to really support the universities in the countries of first asylum for refugees, and really focusing our efforts there and looking at how we support partnerships or digital learning that enables higher education to take place in countries of first asylum for refugees. So for TRSN and those on this call, Felix, I should say, has been very active in helping us work, and Jacob as well from the Global Student Forum, in helping us to try and build or see what a global student campaign would look like to support this. We want to hear from all of you. We want you all to be involved, ambassadors. So there's a definite call to action, and we will follow up with that. Thank you for your time. And Asia, handing back to you.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Now we move into the most exciting part of today, our panel discussion. We are joined by incredible speakers from around the world who are working to make higher education more open, more fair, and more led by the refugee youth. Here are our panelists, Nana Amma, who is joining us from Ashish University, Oricia, who is joining us from Oxford Refugee Lead Research Hub, Rebecca is joining us from Bird College in Osun, Wevan is joining us from Amala, and Jason is joining us from TRSN Latin America. My question from Nana Amma. Why do you place student and youth leadership at the center of helping refugee students access higher education? And what are you doing differently in your work that reflects this belief?
Thank you so much, Ashia, for the question. Thank you. So it is very important to note that refugees or displaced persons are not just beneficiaries, but leaders in their own way. They are innovators and change makers within their communities, right? And when we work with students, leaders, then we are acknowledging that we are acknowledging their lived experiences as a very powerful form of knowledge, right? They understand the challenges that they have gone through and are better than anyone else. And they have gone through and have better solutions for some of the challenges that they've gone through. We believe that it's not enough to just increase the numbers, but also create environments where refugee leaders lead the way, right? And so we would focus on leadership before, during, and beyond access to higher education. This means going beyond the scholarships and the support services that we give to the refugees to ensure that they receive the support they receive and enable them to shape policies, mentor their peers, and also create programs that would positively impact their communities now and in the future. And so for us at Ashesi, what we've done and what we continue to do is train the current refugees we have on campus, so refugee students we have on campus, provide them with information about scholarship opportunities at Ashesi, the support that we provide for refugees and displaced persons, and general information about admissions. And so by doing this, they go back to their communities during the vacations, during once they've graduated, then they are able to identify refugees like them who have the qualification to go into the university and provide the necessary support based off on the trainings that we have given them for them to be able to make strong applications and gain admissions into the university and also access education and succeed whilst they are here at Ashesi. And so that's how we have uniquely been working with refugee students who are leaders in their own ways to ensure that others like them access the education that they have accessed at Ashesi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana. Your words remind us that access is just not about policy, it's about power sharing. I turn to Jason and Vivian. As a refugee youth leader yourself, what motivates you to support other refugees, students, and what keeps you committed to this work?
Thank you, Jason, you can go ahead or go ahead.
Sí, entonces ahí te tradujeron. o te traduzco la pregunta.
La pregunta, porfa.
Listo. Entonces, ¿qué te motiva como estudiante líder juvenil refugiado a apoyar a otros estudiantes refugiados?
Eh, Listo. Primero, ¿me escuchan bien? ¿Me ven bien?
Te oímos y te escuchamos. Bien.
Perfecto. Bueno, primero quiero decirles que es un placer para mí estar reunido acá con ustedes. Mi
So,
nombre es Jason
Jason,
Molina.
okay, so Jason says that it's a pleasure to be here talking with you and to be here presenting his experience.
Mi nombre es Jason Molina, tengo 24 años y actualmente soy becario del programa AFI Colombia.
So Jason, his name is Jason Molina. He has 24 years old and now he's a beneficiary of the Duffy Scholarship Program.
Este programa apoya a jóvenes refugiados, migrantes y también a personas desplazadas internas, como es mi caso.
So this program helps refugees, migrants, and also displaced person in Colombia, as Jason is. He is a displaced person.
Yo fui desplazado por el conflicto armado en un pueblo del departamento de Antioquia, precisamente en Colombia, y gracias a esta beca hoy tengo la oportunidad de estar en la universidad construyendo un proyecto de vida.
So Jason was an internal displaced person because of the Colombian conflict. He lives in the department of Antioquia in Colombia, and thank you to the Taffy scholarship program, he has the opportunity to access to education and also to create a new opportunity and a new dream.
Poder estudiar con el apoyo de DAFI hace una transformación total para mí. Me ha dado una estabilidad emocional y sobre todo una motivación constante para seguir adelante.
So the program has helped Jason to first support her emotional transformation, also emotional motivation to look forward, like to look forward, and also like to have new opportunities.
Ya que esa no solo me ha ayudado a formarme profesionalmente, sino que también a crecer como persona y como ciudadano comprometido con mi comunidad.
Also, the Daffy program has also helped him to grow professionally, but also personally, specifically to help his own community.
Y es eso justamente lo que me motiva a mí a apoyar a otros estudiantes refugiados o desplazados, porque cuando uno vive una situación tan difícil como el desplazamiento forzado, muchas veces lo primero que se pierde es la confianza en uno mismo.
So that is the first motivation that helped Jason to help others, specifically because he knows and have experienced personally the difficult situation of being an internally displaced person in Colombia. So he also wants to help others that are living like in the same conditions. And also because this is a factor that people, like the first thing that people lost is the trust in themselves. So they want that, so he wants to help others with that specific aspect.
Porque saber que alguien más ya pasó por una situación así, ¿cierto? Y que aún así siguió adelante, puede marcar una gran diferencia. Y precisamente yo quiero ser esa persona para otros jóvenes, alguien que les diga con hechos que sí se puede, que no están solos y que vale la pena continuar y seguir.
So, as he passed already for this situation, and he can, so like he also live that difficult situation. He wants to show others that he can do it, and a person that having that condition, that are having that difficult situation, also can do it. He wants to being an example to others that are living the same situation, and to show them that even if they have had that situation, they can succeed and also like follow their dreams and to continue the education.
Además, yo creo que todos los que hemos recibido una oportunidad como esta también tenemos la responsabilidad de abrir caminos en la vida de otros, porque no se trata solo de llegar, sino que se trata también de ayudar a que otros lleguen.
So also that he feels like the responsibility to help others because he has this opportunity. So he wants to be an example to others and also to open different paths in the life and to show others that there are different paths in life, even though they have suffered that situation, and that not only like the objective is to graduate or like to achieve the goal, but also to help others to achieve the goal.
Y es por eso precisamente que, que participo como representante estudiantil en la facultad de mi universidad y por eso hago parte de actividades comunitarias en el barrio y por eso me esfuerzo cada día.
So that is why he is involving in as a representative, as a student representative in the university, and also that is why he also is a leadership in his community.
Porque sé que mi ejemplo puede motivar a otros y que juntos podemos construir redes de apoyo que nos fortalezcan.
And because he wants to be an example to others and also to encourage them to like follow his path and like together create like a support group that can help others that have experienced the same situation as Jason.
Apoyar a otros estudiantes refugiados no, o sea, no es solamente una motivación personal, es también un compromiso que nosotros tenemos con la esperanza, con la resiliencia y con la posibilidad real de transformar nuestras vidas y nuestras comunidades.
Also, supporting others is not only a personal motivation, it's also like a form to like continuing hope, also like to transform lives of their people, of their communities, because it's not only like what Jason says, not only a personal motivation, but also like to help his community and lives of them, and also like to give them hope that a better future can come.
Yo no sería lo que soy hoy sin la oportunidad de estudiar, de entrar a la universidad. Y si yo puedo ayudar a que otro joven encuentre ese mismo camino, lo voy a hacer.
So Jason says that he wouldn't be what he is today if he hadn't had access to the education, specifically to this program. So if he can help others to access to the same opportunities, he will always like do it.
Le doy las gracias al programa AFI Colombia, a ACNUR, a sus aliados y a quienes creen en el poder de la educación como un motor de transformación. Y también le doy gracias por brindarnos estos espacios para compartir nuestras historias y seguir inspirándonos mutuamente.
So Jason is very grateful about this opportunity, specifically of the DAFI program, also to UNHCR, also to all the colleagues and stakeholders that are in this program to help him access to education. Because and also he is very grateful with the people that think that the education can transform lives, and like to the people that believe in this opportunity to make a better future for the students.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was incredibly powerful and personal. You have shown how leadership often comes from lived experience. Vivian, from your role at Amala, what keeps you going? Why this mission is so close to your heart?
Thank you, Asya, for the question. Actually, as both a refugee and an educator myself, I know how it feels to navigate uncertainty, systematic barriers, and feeling of being unseen. What drives me personally is my belief that education is not a charity, it's a right. and a liberation. When we learn, we rise. And when we rise, we don't rise alone. We lift others with us. For me, education is my way of resistance to the uncertain future that I'm still even living in and noticing people living in. It's the horizon that we can have a life with dignity for building a future. You know, education helps you afterwards pursuing career, employment opportunities after being displaced. And refugees have so much tremendous potential. They are, in fact, among the most resilient individuals, shaped by the endurance, you know, and how they continue to navigate each and every day. So being able to be part of my students' educational journey is a huge blessing and also a responsibility that I take seriously. It's also my way of paying back to my community and to the larger society. I am both Amala alumna and Bard College graduate through OSUN. So I want to acknowledge Bard College since they are here with us today. I had the privilege to study online 2 years during the pandemic with Professor Rebecca. And this moment stands as a testament to what is possible when refugees are given the means to thrive. And also for Amala, the same. I'm also an alumna. And I just want to thank people that are working on this. And at Amala, my part at Amala, we don't just teach leadership, entrepreneurship, peace building, and global politics. It's a life worthy learning, a transformative education that allows students to take agency and change their narrative. How do we do that? We do that by a leading community project. We allow them to lead community projects, and they also follow something called competency-based learning model. And this is why we call our courses changemaker courses. And our mission, as we can see it in real life, is to use the power of education to transform the life of refugees, their communities, and the world. We have a lot of success stories from our students who got accepted in big universities such as the University of London. We have great alumni leaders who are working, volunteering with big organizations such as UNHCR, UNICEF, UNESCO. And I'm just grateful as I serve global refugee students here as well for from more than 7 nationalities. And at the end, this is why I'm doing it. We all share one essence, and this is one of my biggest values. It's the shared humanity, and this is simply why I'm doing what I'm doing. Thank you, Asia.
Thank you so much, Vivian, for sharing it with us. Rebecca, I turn to you. As a partner of Each One Take One initiative, how are you including student leadership in how the program grows? And how can others learn from your approach?
Hi, thank you. It's really a privilege to be here. And I echo Manal's opening comments about how being with students in this kind of environment is the reason we do this work. You know, I've been teaching in this environment for well over a decade now, and these are my favorite moments. And I'm really happy to be following Vivian as well. Vivian was an excellent student in our program, so bravo to her. So BARD is really proud to be an Each One Take One champion university. We have been working with refugee students since the 1950s. We first brought refugees to the New York campus in the 1950s, Hungarian dissidents. And since then, we've been trying in our small way to expand our numbers. We're tiny. BARD only has about 2,000 students on its campus. And we run a global network, of course, with over 40 partners, but we are tiny. So we try to leverage our voice as a tiny liberal arts school with this large network to encourage others. And a big way that we do that is through our relationships with our students on our New York campus, as well as across our network. Students are our best advocates. Students can go to chancellors and presidents and they can make arguments. That's how we've been able to receive a number of Palestinian students on our campus in New York, as well as our campus in Berlin. That's how we've been able to move Afghan women in particular out of Afghanistan and out of countries of first asylum into American University of Central Asia, to New York, to Bard College Berlin. And it's because our students make these cases. I would say, though, more directly, a way that we tap into student leadership is through all of the work we do around civic engagement. So a big investment that Bard makes in young people across our network, and particularly on our Bard affiliated campuses like Bard New York, Bard College Berlin, and others, is we support the development of civic engagement projects. We encourage students to develop their own ideas, and we invest in them. We give them small grants, and then we train them with the skills they need to be able to expand these projects. And a number of those initiatives over the past, I would say, especially the past 5 to 6 years, a lot of those projects have been focused on issues related to displacement. Not only refugees, internally displaced, and other individuals who are experiencing displacement. Coming out of some of these civic engagement projects is an initiative that is not only Bard, but also Open Society University network wide, and that's the OSUN Student Voices for Refugees. So a group of students have come together out of Bard and out of our networks, some of whom are refugees themselves, but many of whom are not, and have decided that they want to be able to amplify their own projects, their own work, and make a global argument that it's important to increase numbers on their campuses of students who have experienced displacement. So we try to support those projects with, financial help as well as with guidance and leadership. Another way that we're trying to tap into student leadership is by supporting other initiatives. For example, the UNHCR led peer advisory network that is getting off the ground as we speak, where students, young people, are being trained as peer advisors and will be situated around the world to support other refugees and displaced individuals who are trying to figure out their way. What's the best option in terms of, the education pathway they're going to follow or the journey towards a livelihood. So we try to participate in as many of these institutional initiatives and arrangements as possible to lend our support and our weight of, about 80 years of work in this space. And then finally, I would say that, excuse me, another way that we support not necessarily student leadership, but youth leadership more broadly is the work that we do in countries of first asylum with bridging and preparation. So Vivian referenced the program that she went through where she got a certificate, and we offer credits for courses, and we prepare students with things like critical thinking and language. But critical to that program is that we partner now, not in Vivian's time, but now we partner with refugee-led organizations and support them in delivering this program. Now, the faculty still teach the program, but the refugee-led organizations are capacitated to do all of the logistics, all of the administration, all of the teaching assistant work, any of the other work that doesn't involve faculty delivery, which is, of course, needs to be led by faculty in order to be credit-bearing. But everything else, we try to get these refugee-led organizations involved, and young people are leading those organizations. So I would say those are some key ways that we've tried to use our role as an Each One Take One institution to encourage more youth participation and student participation.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. That's a clear example of what Lear partnership can look like when institutions listen and act. So for the speaker, I have a request. We are out of time, the time is so short with us, so please keep your responses as brief as you can. Orissia, what innovative or practical approaches have really worked in helping refugee students get into and stay in higher education?
Yeah, thank you so much, Asia, and everyone for the important interventions that you have made. My name is Risia from the Refugee-led Research Hub, which is an initiative of the University of Oxford, and it was launched in 2020. I would say in a phrase, I think an innovative approach or initiative is that we provide intentional support with and for by people with lived experience of displacement. For the purpose of this meeting, I'll share more about a specific pillar that we have within the Refugee-led Research Hub, which is the academic pillar, and approaches that we use within the academic pillar to ensure that people with lived experience of displacement, such as refugees, are able to gain access to higher education. So within the academic pillar, we offer a number of programs that are curated specifically for refugee students. And this has been going on for around 3 years now, and it's known as the Graduate Horizons. This is a 3 to 6 months program where refugee students are paired with a mentor who has lived experience of displacement and who has had access to higher education, either doing their PhD or their master's. And they mentor this young refugee student and help them apply to graduate school. This program has been very successful, and we've seen an increase and a high number of refugee students getting access to graduate school, specifically at the University of Oxford and other universities. So the support offered includes going over the person's application materials to ensure that they align with the specific university of choice that the refugee student has chosen and that it meets the profile that the university wants. Within the Graduate Horizons, we also share with the students a curated list of opportunities and scholarships that align with their needs and location. As you all know, very often scholarships are regional and they target a specific profile. So we try to cluster these profiles and share it with the refugee students that we have in our database. The program also offers academic writing boot camps to help refugee students develop writing samples, academic CVs, among other writing materials that are often required when applying for a graduate program. And finally, we also offer mental and well-being sessions throughout the program just to accompany the students throughout the application process, especially when one receives a rejection, and just trying to support them to apply for the next sessions. Apart from this, we have physical hubs in Nairobi, in East Oxford, and one is upcoming in Malaysia, where people with lived experience of forced displacement can go and get tailored support. We try to build communities in these locations to also ensure peer-to-peer support among students, and also building the narrative that if one student can make it, you too can make it by talking with them. Apart from this, one thing that we are very intentional on is also research. So we offer self-paced research packages that refugees can have access to and build their research skills. And these research skills can also be used in graduate school, and these skills can also be used to prepare research proposals, which are also very keen when applying to graduate school, and especially if the program is a research program. So those are some of the approaches and initiatives that we use at the Refugee-led Research Hub. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Horacia. We appreciate your efforts. Let's now look at what we want to come out of this conference in terms of real policy and action. I turn to Jason and Vivian again. What specific action or policies should come out of the 15 by 30 conference to truly support refugee youth leadership?
Okay. We are advocating a lot for scaling and expanding education-based pathways, complementary pathways specifically, and then ensure that refugee youth are not blocked by documentation barriers, restrictions, or policies that discriminate based on nationalities, as it's happening those days. So also we need like more bachelor's scholarships for refugees, and especially those who are living in host communities and in the Middle East, and that they are not as privileged as individuals who are already resettled in a third country like US, UK, Canada, etc. So because those individuals already have legal access, and we need to make sure that refugees that are in host communities have also equal access by lowering the visa requirement or the language requirement. And also we are advocating for offering more language development programs. As we know, the requirements for those complementary education pathways are high. Also, we are calling for supporting existing NGOs, INGOs, nonprofit charities, organizations that are working on refugee education. And Amara is actually one of them by recognizing and allocating sustainable funding to ensure continued support for refugees, as I said, in host communities. As we know, to get into higher education, you have to have a high school certificate, and you cannot get without it. And most refugee students don't have access to that, actually. They are unable to join a formal education. So here we are left with a gap how students are going to be able to join universities or go to higher education without the certificate of high school. And Amala is filling this gap by providing a high school certificate through the internationally accredited global secondary diploma program. We are operating in Jordan and Kenya. Jordan is one of the most host communities or country for refugees from, as I mentioned before, more than seven nationalities: Syrians, Iraqis, Sudanese, Somalis, Yemenis, Palestinians, Eritreans, and more. And Kenya, we are operating in Kakuma camp, which is one of the largest refugees camps. So we are also providing students with pathway advising to prepare them for higher education. So we should invest in existing NGOs or organizations that are working toward that. And finally, to truly do that, we need more than symbolic inclusion. We need structural change. What does this mean? This means we need clear commitments to institutionalizing our leadership roles as refugees. We need funding, and we need to remove legal and administrative barriers and embedding the voice of refugees in every part of the process, from the planning to the implementation to the evaluation. You know, having refugees councils, advisory groups are a great example of that. But actually, what I'm referring to here, I'm sure I'm not the first person to bring this up, but we are delivering recommendation, but we need to see is those recommendations in practice. Those recommendations are taking seriously, and also others are starting to work towards it, because listening to our voices is only the first step. And the real question is, what concrete actions will follow? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian. That was honest and direct. You are holding all of us accountable to go beyond the words. Jason, what would real commitment look like to you? What actions do we need to see?
Jason. Listo. Entonces la pregunta que originalmente hicieron, entonces, ¿qué compromisos o acciones concretas deberían salir de la conferencia 15 by 30 para dar más protagonismo al liderazgo de estudiantes y jóvenes refugiados y desplazados?
Perfecto. Es fundamental, para mí es fundamental que el acceso a la educación deje de verse como un favor o como un privilegio y que se entienda como un derecho que se debe garantizar en la práctica, especialmente
So,
para jóvenes inmigrantes, refugiados y refugiados.
so Jason says that specifically access to education can be seen as a privilege. It has been access to education has to be understood as a right for refugees, migrants, and also displaced, internally displaced persons.
Para lograrlo, se necesitan normas que sean más claras y que sean más flexibles, que les permitan ingresar a universidades, incluso si no cuentan con todos los documentos desde el inicio, ya que sabemos que muchas veces obtenerlo se hace muy difícil o incluso hasta imposible.
So Jason says that first we have to to flexibilize normative and also to change some requirements to refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons to access to higher education. Because, for example, documentation is one of the principal barriers that these refugees, migrants, and also internally displaced persons have to has so they can access to higher education. So some normative that are nowadays very strict and like don't specifically have the context of these difficulties that this population has.
También es clave mejorar el acceso a la información, porque muchos jóvenes no saben qué opciones tienen para seguir estudiando, ni que existen rutas o becas disponibles. Por eso sería útil una campaña dirigida a estudiantes próximos a graduarse que tenga información clara y directa y que les enseñe, o sea, cómo acceder a la educación siendo migrante o siendo refugiado.
The second element that Jason says is that it's very important to have different channels of information, specifically to students that are going to access to higher education, because nowadays students usually don't know about what paths they can follow, the scholarships they have access to. So it's very important to communicate this to them, and also to show to them the opportunities they have and the path they can access to higher education, even if they are refugees, migrants, or internally displaced persons.
Otra cosa que creo que debería surgir y que es bastante importante es que se creen fondos pequeños, pero que sean específicos para apoyar proyectos que ya están siendo liderados por refugiados, por jóvenes refugiados líderes en sus comunidades.
Also, it's very important to create funds, small funds to support these projects, specifically of education for refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons.
Sería importante, ¿cierto? Que esos fondos vayan acompañados, ¿cierto? O sea, que estén junto con acompañamientos, con mentoría y con un seguimiento, porque ya eso podría generar un mejor avance, un gran avance, mejor dicho.
And also, this could be supported with some mentorships and also monitoring, and also giving some support to the students, because this could at the end have a more impact to the education, to higher education for refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons.
Además, sabemos que ya hay muchas redes de jóvenes y organizaciones que ya trabajan en estos temas. Lo que hace falta es que estén mejor conectados entre sí, ¿cierto? Las universidades, con ONGs y con los gobiernos locales juveniles que trabajan en conjunto.
And also it's very important that the different
Sorry for
stakeholders.
the interruption. If Jason can make his response short.
Okay, yes. So Jason, ya nos queda un poquito, entonces sería esto lo último.
Dale.
So lastly, like this is the last intervention, Jason proposed that different ONGs, university, and also local governments connect to each other, start like creating some conversations and working together to promote the education for refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Rebecca, Nana Ama, and Oricia, I turn to you three. How can universities and refugee student leaders work together so that grassroots leadership shapes the broader 15 by 30 roadmap?
So I can just say a couple of really quick things. I think number one, know the landscape where you're working. So, like I was saying earlier, work with refugee led organizations that are already on the ground or engaged in work to bring students into higher education, to get more students involved. Align with those efforts and use those groups to really reach more students. And then I would say the second thing that I would say is, connect with student projects and really leverage them and amplify the work that they're doing. A lot of these projects end up turning in to refugee-led organizations, so connect with them.
Thank you, Asia, for the question. I would say work with refugee students, especially student leaders, and go to institutions where you're most likely to find refugee students. And I will also echo the words that Manal said at the beginning, the value of lived experience. So if institutions can capitalize on that, then I'm sure we can collaboratively reach the 15 by 30 mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Oricia. Nana, if you can go ahead.
Yes. So just to add to what Rebecca and Oricia have shared, I would say some of the refugee-led, student-led organizations are training students from high school ready for university. And so work more closely with them to prepare them for university once they've gained access. Because for them to come into a new country, start education and everything, if they are not very prepared due to the circumstances they find themselves in, then it becomes difficult for them to adjust when they are in school. And so work more closely, universities working more closely with the student-led, refugee-led organizations to ensure that the ones who are ready for university gain the skills and capacity to be able to thrive once they've come into tertiary, because when they thrive, then they are able to share their stories with others to empower them to also want to follow in those steps. So that is what I will add to what has been shared already. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana. Now it's time for the Q&A section from audience. If our audience, you guys, if you have any question, you can open your mic. I encourage you. If you can't open your mic, you can type it in the Q&A section, and our panelists are here to answer you guys. Anyone from our audience, if you guys have any question? Emily, please go ahead.
Hi, yes. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers. This has been a really fascinating conversation. I was wondering if, from all of your different experiences, if people have thoughts about the extent to which based on what students feel is most important, should the priority be placed more on expanding places in countries of first reception or on expanding complementary pathways? Because I think these are two types of, I think both are good, is my understanding. I'm based in a country that has complementary pathways, so I know that one fairly well. But I'm wondering if are students interested in remaining close geographically to their communities, or in seeking access to complementary pathways which might allow more job market access or more ability for the rest of their family to follow later, if there are strong feelings either way. So that's my question.
Yeah, Rebecca is gonna answer the question.
Well, I hope I'm not the only one to answer the question, but I have strong feelings about this. I think we have to be listening to what our students say, of course. And I think, out of the hundreds of students we have, I would say the vast majority want to go on a complementary pathway. I think it's also just unrealistic to think that we're going to reach tens of thousands of complementary pathways in the next few years. However, what I would say is we need to be working across all of the pillars of 15 by 30 and also thinking in really smart ways about, shorter term opportunities like 2-year degrees, TVET certificates, different certificates, and tying them really to the labor market. And that, of course, has to happen country of first asylum by country of first asylum, as well as thinking about digital employment. And I think one of the things that is really lacking in the space, and Manal and I talk about this all of the time, is an approach where there's more integration between the partners. Because of course we would love for students to all have durable solutions outside of their country of first asylum, and it's just not realistic at this moment. But as we look forward to stacking opportunities, to thinking about new funding models like social impact investing, and these different models where students may pay back loans over time, like Malengo and the Talent Mobility Fund, maybe more of those opportunities will open up for education and livelihoods. So, short answer, I think we need to respect what students want and also think across all pillars and advise them appropriately into opportunities that may lead to what their dream is eventually, but maybe not immediately.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for answering the question. Any other question from audience?
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Many thanks for sharing your experiences. I will be shameless and ask 2 questions. Has education been a space of healing, empowerment, or resistance for you or all dear? Could you share an experience that reflects that? Anyone from panelists who is going to answer the question first?
I don't want to be the one to talk first always, so I want others to talk first. I mean, I have things to say, but I'd like to hear from others too. So I'll be quiet until we see if the other panelists want to respond.
Okay, so let me share from our refugee students' perspective what we've done for us refugee students before they graduate is we meet with them and sort of do an exit interview. What's next? And it's always like a 50-50. For some of them, they worry that they have to go back into the refugee camp or settlement for the first country of asylum, right? And if the settings are not conducive, that's where they worry the most. What happens to the education? And so we've realized that most of them would find pathways to continue on into grade school. And if they get the opportunity, they move on to another country to continue. For those who feel they are ready for the world after tertiary, they may have started their own business, entrepreneurship. And so they are looking at impacting, going back to the communities to impact. And so they feel empowered give back and make a change within the communities from where they came from. And we also allow them that if it's going to be a bit tough to go back and settle, and you think you found an opportunity in Ghana, let us know, and then we would provide support for you. We also work with corporate champions, and one of our board members is our biggest corporate champion, has opened up positions within his organizations to employ some refugees who are not looking to go back home. And so we provide support for immigration processes to legalize them to stay and work in Ghana. But most of them feel empowered to and know what they want to do. It's just going back home that becomes a challenge, even if they have family there.
Thank you so much, Nana Ama. Her second question is, many refugee students navigate not just academic demands, but also systems that weren't built with them in mind. What parts of the university or any educational system do you think need to be challenged or reimagined? So who's gonna answer this, Rebecca, Nana, or any other panelist?
I think Nana in part was answering that. I think that thinking about ways to link education to employment and thinking about the student's experience from before they arrive until a couple of years after they complete their degree, whether it's in an online program, an in-person program, that's not typically how universities think. Some universities are really geared towards the job market, no doubt. But the average university is really thinking about that educational experience within the 2 to 4 years, depending on how long the degree is, and not thinking about it as like a 6 or 7 year experience, the after. So I think that that's something universities need to be mindful of. And then there's lots of other things that have come up during this panel about, flexibility around admissions requirements. We have this conversation, my program has this conversation with Ashezi all of the time about age limits, people having a gap in their educational experience, about like KCSE or high school leaving exam scores, like the Taujihi minimum standards, how to be flexible with that, and what kinds of negotiations could be made with ministries, and how universities can play a role in that. So I think flexibility, thinking holistically, thinking broadly, and thinking over, 6 to 7 years rather than just a 4-year degree is critical.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We have another question for Oresia. So unfortunately, Oresia is not here with us, and we will give answer to your question when we receive the answer from Oresia. I think these were all the questions for today. If you guys want to ask us more questions, you can email us. You can leave here in the chat box. So before we finish, I want to speak just for a moment from the heart. I'm not just a moderator today. I am a refugee youth, I am a student, and I am a part of TRSN, a network of refugee leaders around the world who are helping each other, standing up and speaking out. And I want to say this clearly, we are already leading. We do not want symbolical seat at the table. We want real voice, real trust, real power. Here is our call for action from TRSN side to you all. To the university, please open up spaces for refugee students. Each one take one is not just an idea. It's something you can do right now. To the donors and partners, support refugee-led organization. Do not just fund work for us, fund work by us. To the student and youth watching, your voice matters, your story is power. Do not wait to be asked, just lead. And finally, to all of you here today, please carry this with you to the main conference 15 by 30. Bring your question, bring your commitment, and bring your voice. We are not the future, we are the now, we are the present. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you soon.
Recording stopped.